Good afternoon. My name is Edward Sanshin Oberholtzer. I'm the resident priest here at the Joseph Priestley Zen Sangha in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. We're an affiliate of Empty Moon Zen. There's an amusing and probably apocryphal story about Albert Einstein. There are many ways to tell it. Possible evidence of its apocryphal nature. Here's the simplest. Einstein, in his later years, usually turned down the opportunity to speak in public, even though he seemed to enjoy it, though only when it was on something he wanted to speak about. When he was at the Institute for Advanced Studies, a business group in Princeton, New Jersey, caught him unawares and got him to commit to speaking at one of their luncheons. When the time came, Einstein walked to the podium, stood there in silence for a moment, and finally spoke. "I find I have nothing to say." He then turned and left. Now, I do have something to say, so I'm not going to use that story as an excuse to end this talk prematurely and walk off. Instead, I'm going to ask you to turn your minds to case number 67 in the Blue Cliff Record, that great medieval Chinese compendium of koans. The case entitled Mahasattva Fu Expounds the Sutra. And it goes, Emperor Wu of Liang invited Mahasattva Fu to lecture on the Diamond Sutra. On the rostrum, Mahasattva Fu struck the lectern once with his stick and immediately climbed down. The emperor was astonished. Master Ji asked, "Your Majesty, do you understand?" "No, I do not." Mahasattva Fu has finished the lecture. And so, like the emperor, the Rotary Club of Princeton, New Jersey, sat in bafflement. "I find I have nothing to say." What is this nothing? This crack of a stick on a lectern. Silence can be perhaps the most profound of utterances. Mahasattva Fu slammed his stick down on the lectern. This, just this. Fu was an expert in the Diamond Sutra, which has the Buddha ask his disciple Subhuti, "Has the Tathagata something he can preach?" And Subhuti replied, "The Buddha has no doctrine to convey. The truth is ungraspable and inexpressible." Now, perhaps Einstein simply could not come up with a topic. I'd rather like to think that the "I find I have nothing to say" was the stick slamming the lectern. Pay attention. Wake up. Just this. Silence calls us to pay attention. And out of its emptiness, we are rewarded with the coming forth of all things, with the blossoming of the world around us, with the Dharma. The composer and fellow traveler of Zen, John Cage, like many composers, adored silence. At one point in the early 50s, he heard that the psychology department at Harvard University had a sensory deprivation chamber, a place to strip away the buzzing, distracting inputs of the world. Cage arranged to spend time there. He was floated in a tank of heavily salted, body-temperature water, in complete darkness, in a room made totally soundproof. And he found that there the silence was pregnant with sound. His heart beat incessantly. This, just this. Blood swooshed through his veins and arteries. Here, just this. His famous piece entitled 4 Minutes and 33 Seconds arose from this. The 4.5 minutes of silence of a piano unplayed was and is filled not with notes from the piano strings, but by the ambient sounds of the concert hall, shuffling feet, coughs, birds singing, traffic flowing. Just this. Cage's piece has echoes in quantum mechanics, in the view of reality that the emptiness of the field of space has matter fluctuating in and out, form and emptiness commingled, the sounds of the world emerging from silence. And this is the insight of the Diamond Sutra. There is nothing to teach, nothing to lecture, nothing to perform, no music. And so this is called teaching, lecturing, performing, and music. Cage went on to compose the Lecture on Nothing, a rhythmically notated spoken piece which begins, minus the rhythm, I am here, and there is nothing to say. If among you are those who wish to get somewhere, let them leave at any moment. What we require is silence. But what silence requires is that I go on talking. And this talking emerges from silence, from that blessed silence, this crack of the stick, this I find I have nothing to say, form and emptiness. Kazuki Sadeka cites an unnamed sutra with, you preached nothing, I heard nothing, no preaching and no hearing. That is true prajna. That is true wisdom. Silence is hard to accomplish. It requires discipline, the discipline that led Wittgenstein to write, what we cannot speak about, we must pass over in silence. Cage received ridicule for his silence. Mahasattva Fu earned the astonishment of the emperor. Einstein, the wonder of the Rotarians. The teaching that is no teaching must be conveyed in silence, the silence that, as Cage wrote, requires that I go on talking. Thank you.